He had no uniform, no badge, no vehicle waiting at the curb. He had a job title and a rule about curfew, and on a dark suburban road outside Chiba City, that was enough to make 4 children do exactly what he told them. 3 of them rode home. 1 did not. Nana Sakuma was 13 years old, a first-year junior high school student, and she had been out with her friends for less than an hour. A fallen branch put her on the ground at the wrong minute. A stranger walked up out of the dark and told her he was an officer. 35 years later, the police station that took the call is still asking the public for information. Her name is still on their website. Her photograph is still there. And the short, heavy-set man who spoke to 4 children that night, who was seen by a passing driver, who was described in detail and drawn in a sketch, has never been identified.
To understand what happened on that road, you have to understand the place. Wakaba Ward sits on the eastern edge of Chiba City, about 40 kilometers from central Tokyo. In 1991, it was a landscape caught halfway through a transformation. Rice fields and stands of trees still ran between the roads. Pressed up against them were the new towns, the great planned housing estates built through the 1970s to absorb families pushed out of the capital. Wide streets, low apartment blocks, playgrounds on a grid. Between the estates, the roads went dark. There were no cameras. Mobile phones were a luxury item that a 13-year-old would not have owned. If something happened to you out there at 1 in the morning, the record of it would be whatever the people present remembered. And this was a country where children moved on their own. Elementary school students walked to school in groups without adults. Junior high students rode bicycles for kilometers to see friends. Japan in the early 90s had one of the lowest violent crime rates in the developed world, and parents behaved accordingly. That trust was not naive. It was, statistically, correct almost every time. One more piece of context matters because the entire case turns on it. Japan has a real, recognized role called the Youth Guidance Officer. They're adults, some official and some volunteer, who patrol at night looking for underage children out past curfew. They stop you. They ask your name and your school. They can call your parents or the police. Every Japanese school child of that era knew this, which meant that a man who claimed to be one was not making an unbelievable claim. He was claiming to be the exact kind of person you would expect to meet on a street after midnight.
It was the last weekend of October. A typhoon had come through, and the road still carried what it had torn down. Just after midnight on Sunday the 27th, 4 girls left the house on bicycles. They were all the same school year, 13 years old, and they had decided they wanted snacks. The convenience store was about 4 kilometers away. 4 kilometers in the dark at midnight to buy sweets. In 1991, this was a slightly naughty thing to do, the kind of small rebellion friends laugh about afterwards. It was not, to any of them, a dangerous thing to do. They bought what they came for. They started back. At about 1 in the morning, on a road in Tibetacho, one of the bicycles hit something lying across the asphalt, a branch brought down by the storm and never cleared. The front wheel struck it, and the girl riding it went down. That is the moment the case exists. 4 girls stopped, one of them on the ground with a bag of snacks in the middle of an unlit road, and a man came out of the dark towards them. He was middle-aged, somewhere between 40 and 50, short, about 155 centimeters, and heavily built. A round face, narrow eyes, a ruddy complexion, a black knit cap, a striped long-sleeved shirt, dark trousers. He was on foot, no car, no bicycle. He told the girls he was a youth guidance officer. He told them that being out after 11 at night was a violation, and that by rights he should be calling the police about it. The friends would later describe his manner as forceful and intimidating, an adult putting children in their place. And then he made the decision that ended everything. He told 3 of them to go home. He said he would take the 4th with him as the one answering for the group. They obeyed. Of course they obeyed. An angry adult with an official title had just told 4 exhausted 13-year-olds they were in trouble and had offered most of them a way out of it. They got on their bicycles and rode away. Behind them, a girl walked off down a narrow side road beside a stranger. Her bicycle stayed where it had fallen. For a short while, the pair were still visible to the world. At roughly 1:20 in the morning, a passing motorist saw a man and a girl matching the descriptions near an intersection in Sakatsukicho, a couple of 100 meters from where the group had stopped. Later that same night, another report placed a man and a girl walking through the Chishirodai housing estate about 2 kilometers away. Accounts of the exact hour differ. After that, nothing. No confirmed sighting has ever been made since. Her family called the police at around 4:20 that morning, once the friends came back without her. What followed was a large operation. Within days, investigators had built a composite sketch from the 3 witnesses, and a dedicated task force was assigned to the case, reported at more than 100 officers. In December, ground searches covered a radius of several kilometers around the road, with over 150 personnel working through fields, drainage channels, and wooded ground. They found no clothing, no bag, no bicycle parts, nothing. Then, roughly 5 weeks in, the police did something Japanese forces rarely do with a missing child. They released her name and her photograph to the press. That decision is worth sitting with. Japanese police handle juvenile cases with heavy privacy protection, and going public with a child's identity is a step taken when the alternatives have run out. 5 weeks after she disappeared, the investigation was already cold enough to justify it. Tips came in from across the country. Reported figures put them in the high hundreds within the first year, with hundreds of individuals checked and cleared. Officers worked through the sightings, the sketch, the local records of men who matched the description. None of it produced him. The task force shrank, then it shrank again. The road was cleared, the branch long gone, and the case settled into the category that Japanese investigators call a case gone to the labyrinth.
What makes this case sit so badly is not that there was no evidence. It is that there was so much of the wrong kind. Start with the witnesses. Most abduction cases are built on fragments, a partial plate number, a shape at a distance. Here, 3 children stood within arm's reach of the man, in conversation with him for minutes. They heard his voice. They saw his face well enough that police could publish an age, a height, a build, a complexion, and a set of clothes. A 4th witness, an adult driver, saw him again 20 minutes later. He was one of the most thoroughly described unidentified men in modern Japanese crime, and he was never found. Then there is the walk itself. He had no vehicle. Both reported sightings show the pair on foot,
moving away from open country towards a built-up estate full of apartments and families. That is an extraordinary risk for someone who has just taken a child. Every lit window is a potential witness. So why walk? The likeliest reading is the simplest one, and it is also the most disturbing. He walked because he had somewhere to walk to. And there is the question of the story he told. He did not grab anyone. He did not threaten anyone with a weapon. He used a rule that only works if you know the local norms, delivered with the confidence of someone who had watched adults do it. Police reportedly worked the case as an abduction for indecent purposes. Beyond that clinical phrase, nothing was ever established, because nothing was ever recovered. 3 children spoke to a man for several minutes and remembered him clearly. Somebody, somewhere, recognized that sketch. Nobody ever said so. Let me set out how I read this case, because the pieces point somewhere fairly specific. First, the legal position, which is stranger than most viewers expect. Under the law as it stood in the 90s, the abduction of a minor carried a limitation period measured in a handful of years. On that basis, the crime that 3 witnesses actually saw happen stopped being prosecutable while they were still teenagers. But Japan abolished the statute of limitations for homicide in its 2010 reform, and that abolition reaches back to offenses committed from 1985 onward. So the case sits in a peculiar shape. The crime everyone can describe has expired. The crime nobody has been able to prove has no deadline at all. That is precisely why the notice is still published. Second, the profile. 2 readings circulate. One imagines a predator who drove in, took a child, and drove out, a stranger passing through. The other says he was local. Weigh them against the reported facts, and they are not equal. A man arriving by car does not park somewhere and wander an unlit rural road on foot at 1 in the morning. He does not walk his victim 2 kilometers through a residential estate. And he does not improvise a curfew script fluently unless the local rules are second nature to him. Every reported detail favors a man who was already there, on foot, walking home. Third, a harder point. In the absence of an answer, the internet supplied one. For years, blogs and videos have circulated the names of real, living people as the man in the sketch. Nobody has ever been arrested, charged, or publicly named as a suspect by police in this case. Those accusations are not investigation. They are the damage an unsolved case keeps doing, decades after the road was cleared.
She has never been found. She is, in law and on the record, a missing person, and the case remains open. If he was in his 40s in 1991, he would be in his 80s now, or gone. The sketch of him is 35 years old. The 3 friends who spoke to him that night are middle-aged women who have carried it their whole lives. And still, on the website of a police station in eastern Chiba, there is a page asking anyone with information to come forward. A name. A photograph of a 13-year-old in 1991, a phone number that still connects. Somebody knew the short man in the black knit cap who walked those roads at night. Somebody may still. What do you think happened on that road after the 3 girls rode away?